Good afternoon, dear students. Today our topic money. Let's start our lesson. The first task today. This is a business letter. The Stafford Office Furniture Ltd. And the one person that sent and you should read this letter. After reading the letter, you should begin the second task where these things match each letter item to a number in the letter. For example, the A1, the S signature. Where we put the signature? For example, maybe the H1, maybe the second one. Then we will listen to one of the girls, Rachel Oman, being interviewed. Compare your story with yours. The Sainsbury's is the name of the supermarket.
Tape script 3.6. Talking about books. Joey.
You really enjoy reading, Joey, don't you?
No, I do very much. I'm a prolific reader.
Can you tell me the title and the author of one of your favourite books?
Well, it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint a favourite book, but I suppose The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins particularly sticks in my mind.
Wilkie Collins?
Yes, that's right.
And when was that written?
It was written in the 19th century. So it's...
And what kind of a book is it?
It's a detective story with a bit of romance thrown in, so you've got it all there, really, complete package. But it's a very good detective story.
I think I've heard of it. I think it's called the very first detective story that was ever written.
Oh, really?
I
Well,
think
considering
so,
it's the first one, it's jolly good.
And what's it about?
Well, it's basically about mistaken identity. The woman in white looks very like this young lady called Miss Fairley. Basically, it's the main character is Walter Hartwright, who's a young artist, and he goes up to the north of England to instruct these two young ladies in the art of how to, in how to paint. And he falls in love with Miss Fairley, but he's too poor, so she can't marry him, so she marries somebody else. And then he hears that she's died, so he goes up to her gravestone and he's weeping on her gravestone. And when she suddenly appears, so she pretended to die so she could escape from her...
Well, is this because she has a look-alike, somebody
Yes,
who looks like her twin?
but it was the woman in white that had actually died, not Miss Fairley.
Ah, so, I mean, they look so alike,
They look
as if
so alike,
identical
yes.
twins.
As if, yes.
Well, wonderful theme for a detective story.
Indeed.
Where does it take place, this story?
It takes place in London and the north of England because that's where he goes to teach these two young ladies.
And you really, obviously you enjoyed reading it very much. I mean, why particularly? Why did you like it so much?
Well, you know, it's so important when you look forward to reading the present book. You can't wait to go to
Yeah.
bed because you want to carry on reading it, and that's what it was like with this book. I couldn't wait to go to bed so I could carry on reading it, and I would
So you
read
read it
until the
every
early
night?
hours in the morning. Because
Couldn't put it down?
No, absolutely not. It was very good.
Page after page. I think that's the best, the best kind of book, isn't it?
Definitely.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Ken.
Right, Ken, what kinds of books do you enjoy reading?
Actually, I enjoy reading quite a range of books, but I suppose if I had to choose one, as it were, for my desert island, I would choose autobiography. And I think mainly because I just enjoy reading about other people's lives and the adventures they've got into and the ups and downs of the character of their lives. And because they're always very weighty. And somehow you get to know the people very well and perhaps with more insight than you might otherwise. You may hear about them on the radio or television and so on. But suddenly you get behind all that and see what it is that makes the person tick. And that always fascinates me.
What about a particular book that you've read recently that you've really enjoyed?
Well, I think the book that I always come back to is Laurie Lee's Cider with Rosie. It's a favourite. It's one that I'm always recommending to young students to read. It's extremely good quality. He is, of course, a poet, and this comes through in the language, and his observations never fails to please me. I always find something new in it to enjoy. He expresses himself so very well. Lots of humour, acute observations, and generally here's a writer who I think is a real writer in that he conveys his enthusiasm for writing itself and his life and the things he sees.
What's it about, Cider with Rosie?
Well, Cider with Rosie is an autobiography. It tells of his life in the Cotswolds, in a little village, and it starts when he's about 3 years of age, and it tells of the village, its people, the way the society works, and about his growing up in this rather countrified, quiet little community, which he stays there until he's about 18, and then off he goes around. I believe in the first case on his journey was around Spain. So it's his childhood in this little village. And it describes the village, of course, its characters, and the way he feels about it, and the way it shaped his life. And it's called Cider with Rosie because the one event that he remembers particularly well was a little encounter with Rosie in the bushes with some cider. And you're left to think about what that may mean.
Kate.
Kate, do you like reading?
Yes.
Good.